Welcome to Sahitya Academy's Webline Literature Series. Today's program is in English language. Today's program features poetry reading by three eminent poets. In the last episode of poetry reading, we discussed about how poetry ornaments our thoughts, decorates our inner world, psychological, etc. And also that it lives, it's along with the time. There is a kind of a saying in almost all languages of the world: time is the best healer. Poetry is also has got that property, and it lifts people, and it is accessible to everyone, whether one is educated, one is living in a developing country, one is living in a high advanced society, or what. And poetry today we are in for a treat. We have wonderful poets here with us. The first poet with us is Srilata. She is a poet, writer, and professor of English in IIT Madras. She was a writer in residency in the University of Stirling, Scotland, UNV Art Space, Seoul, and Sangam House. Srilata has got 5 collections of poetry, latest of which The Unmistakable Presence, the presence of absent human, and it was published in 2019. Other poetry books include Bookmarking the Oasis, Writing of Octopus, Arriving Shortly, Sea Blue Child. Srilata has published a novel titled Table for Four and has co-authored anthologies. The most important is the Rapids of a Great River, the Penguin Book of Tamil Poetry. It's one of the most authentic collections that one will ever get to read. Another is short fiction, South India, and then all the worlds between landscapes, the interviews with contemporary women writers from Tamil Nadu. Our poems are part of Goethe Institute curator project titled Held the Lockdown in Words and Images. And it is a great pleasure to have you with us, Srilata.
Thank you so much. Good evening and hello to all the co-panelists, Lakshmi and Srividya.
Yeah, let me introduce the other poets also. Next poet is Dr. Lakshmi Kannan. She's a poet, novelist, short story writer, and translator. She also writes in Tamil. And we talked about Srilata's rap. Sorry for that. Rapids of a Great River. How that's one of the most important work in contemporary literature. And Lakshmi Kannan's translation of Maraposu from T. Janakiraman is one of the best translations you will ever see. And her 5th book, and it's the latest book, which was published about 8-9 months ago, Sipping the Jasmine Moon. And her previous, she has so many other things, like she published one with Sahitya Academy also, Unquiet Waters. And she has a novel called The Glass Bead Curtain. And it was published 2-3 years ago. And she was a resident writer in International Writing Program in Iowa, the University of Canterbury in Kent, United Kingdom, and she's a recipient of Charles Wallace Fellowship, and she was a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla, and she has been a British Council visitor at the University of Cambridge, United Kingdom. And she has, other than poetry, she has got 27 titles to her credit, including translations, and she was a professor in Delhi University and also Jadavpur University in Kolkata. It's great to see you, ma'am. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah. And Srividya Sivakumar. Well, she's a poet, columnist, TEDx speaker, and she has been a teacher trainer for 21 years and has published 2 collections of poetry. Her second one is a very highly critically acclaimed, The Heart Isn't Attic. It was published about a year and a half ago, I think 2 years. And the book was debuted as #1 new release in Indian literature, and on many portals. And her other poem is Bamboo. It was nominated as a Best of Net anthology, again 2 years ago. Srividya used to write a weekly column running on poetry for Metro Plus in Hindu for about 3 years, and her column, current column is Srividya Speaks Poetry. It appears in Narrow Road, a literary journal. Well, it's lovely to have you with us, Srividya.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And we'll start with Srilata. Can you please read a poem?
As I said, thank you and good evening once again to all my co-panelists and to the audience. It's always an honor to read at a Sahitya Akademi event. I will be reading today. My first opening poem is from my latest book published by Poetry Wala last year, titled The Unmistakable Presence of Absent Humans. So this poem is, partly about my own childhood years, growing up without a father, the absence of a larger family, and the sort of little fantasies that this brings about, in a sense. This poem is called It is 1966. I'm not born. My father knocks on the door of a house I have never seen. There at the door stands my mother, slender, a sprig of jasmine in her hair. I take a taxi to the park where they are sitting on a bench, a foot apart from each other. He with his face resolutely averted, she with her eyes on the poorly tended flowers. It is the beginning, I know, of that great quarrel. My mother, no longer a new bride, the edge of her sari, already a grieving afterthought. She doesn't see me. She sees only the crumble of her years. I am to hold forever the grating harshness of it all. I walk up older already than them both, tell them I'm their only daughter, and will they please look at me, look at each other the way they had the day he had knocked on the door and she had let him in, jasmine in her hair. My mother looks at the flowers, the crumble of her years. My father away from us both. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting title actually for the collection itself, and unmistakable presence of absent humans. I don't know why you chose that, and there is a Western world is still struggling. In psychology, there's a theory. It's not yet completely absorbed because they are unable to establish it. Women are good in finding the absent things. If somebody is there, any object, and in Sanskrit it's called abhava. The sense of abhava women have, and there's a man who wrote a book on the whole issue that how the entire world is suppressing women, keeping them under wraps, because if women are allowed, they will rule the poker world. They will beat every single person, most strongest players. It's a very interesting thing. It's a psychological study. It's your poem also. It's kind of highly resonating with what you chosen. Anyway, we will come to the topic of your title book later. So now I request Dr. Lakshmi Kannan.
Good evening and a big hi to Srividya and Srilata. My last teaching appointment was with IIT Delhi, so that's how I connect also with Srilata.
Okay.
The poem that I read is about vanishing Tamil custom in Tamil households of doing hair. You see, a senior woman, please imagine a senior woman doing the hair of a young daughter, and the young daughter is doing the hair of a little girl. And this kind of a thing is vanishing, and my poem is about that. It is called Braided Lives.
Okay.
Sparse silver hair strayed over the chubby face. I have more time on my hands now, she chuckled. Not much hair to tend to. Just a few wispy strands contained neatly within this hairnet. So come, let me do your hair, she said to her daughter, gathering her thick, dark tresses. Occasional threads of silver streaked across in stark contrast. It was so disquieting Why don't you look after your hair properly? Scolded the mother. Time was running out, was it? Even for my young daughter, she mused, pushing her grey strands under the black ones. You must massage your scalp with warm coconut oil, then wash your hair with the water of Rita feeds, not with your stupid bazaar shampoo. The daughter acquiesced with a smile. She called out to her little girl, "Come, let's finish doing your hair too while we are about it. Hurry," she urged. The little girl's hair rippled defiantly through the teeth of the comb. Hair so black, it hurt the eyes. "Can't you sit still even for a minute?" chided the young mother, parting the child's hair into 3 strands of equal thickness to braid it. She took the left strand and moved it over the right, while behind her, the mother moved the right strand to cover the grey of the left, then the middle strand of black hair. Shot with white, moved to the left, right, center, left, 3 in a row, twisting time in the ritual of doing hair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Srividya?
Yes, please let me start by saying thank you so much for this opportunity, Mr. Rajmohan. I'm really delighted to be in the company of Dr. Srilata and Dr. Lakshmi. The first poem I'm presenting this evening was actually written in quest for an answer. When you write anything in English, people often ask you why you don't write in an Indian language. And this was written as a response to that question. This one is called Pamuk Plays the Palanguri. I talked to him about Vijay Nambisan, reclusive poet, older brother. He says there are many like him in his state. Ayappan died on the streets. Chulikad was a warrior, and MT is the greatest of them all. You English literature convent educated girls, step outside and look at the world. My convent was a government school with a ghost in the bathroom. The marble floors were broken cement and cobwebs made for fine hair ornaments. It was first come, first served, and the days you were delayed, you squinted at the board in a dimly lit space, wondering about arithmetic. No one taught me poetry then. It was Mr. Bell and Mrs. Bell. It was Kuchu and his glasses. English literature was a father's well-annotated Shakespeare. It was murder in the cathedral and Gitanjali. It was the state prayer, the few words of Tamil I could only hum to. I know not of Bharati, the man I share a birthday with. I know not of Sangam poetry. I immerse myself in the wine of Madhushala and look for the Saki. I sense the birth pangs in tamas and read. Yes, I am not partial to your tongue, but I can quote Umberto and Wislava, Neruda and Saadat. Life doesn't come in one dialect, neither does love, neither does learning, neither does hubris. Poets live and poets die, penniless in any language. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, good. Srilata?
This poem is called A Disappeared Person. They say a person can disappear and leave no trace at all. Such things are known to happen. Missing persons cast no shadows. They don't leave used dishes in the sink, nor square bits of body soap, nor toothbrushes that have flowered slightly, nor notes declaring love, etc. on the fridge. But surely, growth and all sorts of things are possible in the life of a person who has disappeared. And so, like the blade of a knife, that shadow presence, leaving used dishes in some other sink, and square bits of body soap, and toothbrushes that have flowered slightly, and notes declaring love, etc., on someone else's fridge, ruining ever so slightly the geometric alignment of our lives.
Yeah, it's okay. So Lakshmi, Kannan?
Yeah, that was very interesting. So I read a poem called The Bracelet Watch. It's about a woman being very contrary. She doesn't know why she does a few things. So this is about one phase in my life when I went through a serious open heart surgery, and my family did not think I would survive. And I was so weak, I was in a wheelchair for a few weeks and all that. Nobody thought I would survive. So what did this woman do? She went and got herself a glamorous watch, bracelet watch. Having admired its coppery pink tint, the tastefully arranged row of zircon sparkling around the large watch, the elegance, the femininity, I should have just smiled approvingly and walked out of the shop. But I bought it. Don't ask me why. Why a glamorous watch to tell my time is a question I can't answer, much less explain even to myself. Sure enough, the bracelet watch drew gushing compliments from family, friends, and strangers alike, and in the most unlikely places too. In elevators, crowded amusement parks, washrooms, people bent over to take a closer look at the watch glittering on my arm that rested on a wheelchair. I thanked them all and moved on with another kind of hourglass time throbbing ominously on my frail form. Very soon, this beauty will pass on as an heirloom to adorn the young wrist of someone in the family. Time will tick on regardless of who wears it. Thank you.
Thank you. Srividya?
This poem is called Stillness. I need to do nothing with these silences. They can stick like toffee to your teeth, stretch like treacle pudding, feel like a Sunday afternoon. And I need to do nothing. There is no industry in these silences. There is no frenetic lighting of candles, riding on bareback, wondering and watching, laundering slip covers. These silences are long and short, painful and painless, necessary and mostly not, but they are. What does one do when one no longer cares about the silences? Take each note of silence and create a multicolored amulet, blue for the unspoken, white for the uttered, yellow for the heart that hurts. Take this silence, put it in a bale of hay and count how many seconds to turn to crisp. Golden yellow, orange angry. Gather this silent scattered moonlight and try to piece it together to create a half-broken, half-beating world. Dive deep into the silence. Find fish waiting with letters in their fins, leftover fantasies in their gills, and breathe like they do, heavy and shallow. Turn your back to this beast of silence. Let averted eyes strengthen you. Let a shift in stance guide you. May you always be silence-free. Thank you.
Srilata?
Poem titled England 1999 was actually begun in the year 1999. Yeah, so that was many years ago. And I managed to complete it only after several years. And it's really about how does one explain one's country, the complexity that India is, to someone that's not from here. So I started writing this when the year I traveled to the UK on a writing fellowship. And I was trying very hard to explain the country in a sense to this woman who was a very kind lady who hosted me. And this poem actually comes from there. And it was only years later I figured what I wanted to say in that poem. Yeah, so that's why it took so long to be completed. England 1999. It turns out that my hostess is a wonderful woman, kind, house-proud, and gracious in the extreme. I couldn't have asked for more. She hovers around me like a small butterfly, pointing out the songbirds, the excessively clear skies, air crisper than fresh toast, the cheerful cows bursting with good health and milk, and the trees. And then she pops it, the question I have been dreading all along. So, what's it like in India? We are a developing nation, as you know, I say, beginning badly. Soon, I'm selling the country for less than a song. Our cities are full of withering trees, their leaves covered in dust. You're lucky if you see a bird. The air is always hot with smoke. Our cows are parchment thin, and our skies, no one has the time for them. All along, I'm holding back another story, a story I don't know how to tell, an interior shadow story. And this is how it goes. Back home, laughter can spring unexpectedly from last night's trash. People steal the skies from themselves in the early hours of dawn. Every day they eke out color, weave the sparkle of diamond needles into silk, create the perfect ordinary geometry of columns for ants to feed off, for feet to trample on. These and a million other beautiful things our people do daily. All along, I'm sitting on a dormant volcano of a lie. Our naked babies crawl off the streets and into the embrace of their mothers. Beggars are always fed, women and minorities are safe, and caste is dead. Long after I've said my goodbyes, I dream of visiting on my gracious hostess this shadow story, that volcano lie imploding within.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Very nice.
Yeah. Lakshmi, Kannan.
I'll read a poem from my latest collection, Sipping the Jasmine Moon by Authors Press. And this is called Maitri, which in Sanskrit and Hindi means friendship. It is celebrating the friendship of two women who have really grown older and who have weathered many, many storms. And this was selected for a commemorative volume for Navneeta Sen for her 80th birthday. She's no more, but she was a brilliant poet. And the red thread that I mention here is something that we all do before, it's like a sankalp. You take a determination before you do a puja or something. And it is these two friends have taken a sankalp that they will be friends come what may. Maitri. With you, I could come into my own, for you just let me be. And with me, you laugh so heartily, I've never seen this abandoned in your own home. For you always had to be something to somebody, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and aunt. Oh God, the family net is so far-reaching. Blissfully, I fell somewhere inside the crack between a friend and a genial foe. And you, to avoid the sisterly trap, morphed into a comrade in arms, wedged between us. Probity found a space to breathe. And then we shared secrets in a trust that was tacit, though fragile. For I was, or you were for that matter, always within an inch of betraying it. The amazing thing is, we didn't. Betray, I mean. I turned into a magic mirror in which you relived the poetry of your childhood, the effervescence, youth, and you became a mirror that showed my raw hunger and life in my many submerged phases. The red thread around our wrists has since got a bit discolored, always somewhat worn at the edges. Yet it's still there, weathering our autumnal years. Thank you.
Thank you. Srividya.
This poem is an ode to the hill station where I spent quite a bit of my childhood. And it was written during a poetry workshop I was lucky to attend a few months ago. And it's a city sound poem where the first letter of the place that I've written about is repeated through the poem, or that's what I tried to do. This poem is called Cornflower Caresses. In Kunur, childhood tumbles down a hill to find its way home. The cobra lily has made a comeback. The gardens are bursting with crowds and the commotion hurts delicate camellia ears. The Varki is especially good with a tumbler of cardamom tea. The churches see more charlatans than the courthouse. The temples clamor for your sleep on a cold morning. The cold is a man with a mind of his own. A ghost lives in the castle behind your house. These hills call out to you. And the Kurunji is a perfect lover. It appears so rarely, almost reluctantly, in a burst of Crayola blue. Thank you.
That's a very lovely place to spend childhood.
Yes, it is.
That's a lovely place. Yeah, Srilata.
So this poem is, written more recently, post lockdown, which we have all been going through in some way or the other, right? And one of the losses of this has been that I can't get to my office. I work at IIT Chennai and I live off campus. So we were not actually allowed to go there, and we weren't allowed to actually even take out the car and so on for a while, right? And all my books were stuck there at work in my little office room there. So it's about that. The poem is titled On Books Left Behind in My Office and the Grandfather. I have lost entire bookshelves these lockdown weeks. Odes, elegies, lyrics, entire ways to sing experience. I have lost them all. I have lost Paradise Lost, lost Hell and Heaven, lost stories, lost all the many ways to tell them, lost the gentle lean of book spines like giraffe necks, lost the heady mix-up of categories, Joe Sacco's Palestine resting beside Ramanujan's poems of love and war, lost the books I teach, the ones I haven't taught in a while, lost the books I've lost to my students, marked by wistful spaces between books not yet lost. Lost the way light has of shining on certain books, depending. Lost the lazy dust that lies on others, not visited in years. Lost the coy silverfish that dart from between my grandfather's Palgrave's golden treasury, his name carefully calligraphed on the first page. He was a careful man. And I've gone and lost him all over again these past lockdown weeks. Thank you.
Lakshmi, Kannan.
I'll read a poem on my late mother, Sharadambar. She was a very, very well-known artist during her times and painted beautifully. And then she went through a phase which was very upsetting for us because we couldn't gift her anything without it's being returned to us after a while. So that was a phase that she was going through. It's called a C-suite. I noticed how mother of late accepted our gifts, kept them for a while, and then returned them politely. One by one by one, they were returned with that look we dreaded. Sorry, but I can't take them with me, can I? It said. I saw a sea in her eyes then. It has since spilled over to the rest of her. Mother has grown large, very large. Her waves arching high, unafraid. They swept over the gifts, the waves. They threw them back to the shore. The saris, the handbags, the chola figurines in bronze she once shined lovingly. The prints of Monet, the prints of Van Gogh and Rembrandt she treasured. The books on art, the fragile crystalware. How very small and trivial they looked for the sea. The huge waves washed over them furiously. They dashed them back to the sand, along with the mollusk that stumbled out, staggering with the weight of their moist shells on top. The salty froth rushed, tickling our feet. Mother had the last laugh. Thank you.
Srividya?
I think the sight of the laborers making their way home during the lockdown has affected all of us. And I also realized that when we are in the midst of a crisis, home is exactly where we want to be in most cases. So I wrote this poem called Fever Poems. Bless these hours of wait as I wait by the phone and millions dream of home. These days they play tag and the spirit is a checkered rag. What of this wearable pain? It is sought out and found wanting again. This love is hardly unreachable. It is not a village after all, and these fingers are not that feeble. There is no mirage on the road. I see faith and it worships alone. The dun road is bleached white. The sun shines, the desert a respite. The family has abandoned all pretense. A glass of water is the map reference. At home, the steel wool is an intractable beast. It plays spoil sport to a game of ease. The vegetable garden is stripped bare, the carrion consumed with care. High above, saddest cranes take flight on empty wings. High above, saddest cranes take flight on empty wings. Thank you.
All the three of you are poets and also into teaching. It's very interesting. I had a program. I did a program with Shivaprakash and Sumani Satpathy a few weeks ago. Okay, it was about isolation and creativity. So, since all of you are poets, does this lockdown and enforced isolation, does it help? Does it improve, enhance creativity?
I think it's a hard question, as in you know, it is just that we have sort of transitioned into a time for which we are not prepared, which then throws up all kinds of very unfamiliar emotions, and even the anxiety is not the usual sort of anxiety. So when you want to, because it's really unprecedented, right? And I think the losses that we feel are all, a series of small losses, like my poem about the bookshelves and my grandfather. And there are also bigger losses and worries about, death and people that we love dying and all of that. So what does it do to creativity? I think it's sometimes it can just freeze you up. And I think that happened to me. But after a while, I realized that for me, the only way to cope was to actually document it, to write it down, to write it as it was unfolding, and which is one of the things I chose to do. Yeah.
Yeah, Lakshmi, Kannan, how do you mean?
About the lockdown?
Yeah, isolation and how does it?
I listened with much interest to Srividya's and Srilata's poems on lockdown and that situation. And when it had precipitated around April, the coronavirus, and none of us were allowed to go out, and even to the neighborhood park, there was some kind of a stricture about it. I wrote a poem on that, and unfortunately, I don't have it. I didn't include it here because it's not short enough. But I'll tell you about it very briefly. It's called the 14th of April, which is our Tamil Varuduparuppu, Varishapirappu. 14th April is our Tamil New Year. And every year, our neem tree showers neem flowers for that Vepambu rasam that we do so fondly with jaggery and vellam and all that. This time, it did not. It had tight-fisted buds, and I waited and waited and waited. And then the tree looked as if it was mourning for everybody who has died in the pandemic. And I just waited, and our Tamil New Year went without that Vepambu rasam. I wrote about that, like it's a private loss and it's a record of that. And about 1 or 2 weeks later, it started blooming. And then I made rasam and I told my family, today is 14th April, whatever is the date.
Okay.
Think it is 14th April.
Okay. Srividya?
I partially agree with Dr. Srilata. In my case, what has happened is it has created so much anxiety, especially not being able to see my parents who live in the same city, but I couldn't meet them for months together. And it creates a lot of anxiety. And I found that it did this thing where I'm essentially a love poet, but then it felt a little trite to be writing about love poetry when people are dealing with so much. And that's why I wrote Fever Poems. What is a crisis to me is not a crisis for a laborer trying to make his way home with 2 children, a suitcase, and bare feet. So that's what it changed. It has changed a little bit my sensibility towards how I write poetry. I think there are other things that I'm bringing into my poetry themes. And it's also helping me understand that I need to engage with other themes and topics as well. I think I've become a little single-minded about the way I write poetry, and I want to be able to do other things as well. So that's how the lockdown has affected me.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I will send the link to the program to all of you, and for the viewers, we will try to put it in the description below. So Srilata, please continue with the poetry.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this poem, continuing on from the one that I read last, this is called Ghuttan, which is the Hindi word for suffocation. And this is actually been featured on the Goethe Institute project Held. And it's part of a series that I've titled the Breath series. So this poem was actually sparked off by a conversation that I had with my mother-in-law, who is in Hyderabad, doesn't live in the same city as I do. And she said what she feels about the whole lockdown. She says, I have this feeling of Ghuttan. I just feel sort of suffocated, she said, right? And that kind of that word stuck in my head, and this poem comes from that. Ghuttan. I feel a certain Ghuttan, she said. Using a Hindi word I have almost forgotten, but know in my bones, in my skin. Here in the voices of friends I have been calling in turns, one of whom tells me she can't breathe. It is Ghuttan I see in the eyes of the young who walk the empty streets. It's Ghuttan in the playgrounds without a childhood, in a childhood without playgrounds. It's Ghuttan in the souls of old women who stay home and stay home and stay home, dreaming of mangoes. This season, I'm told, even the mango trees are heavy with Ghuttan. Thank you.
Yeah, ma'am. Lakshmi, Kannan.
Yeah, another short poem.
Yeah.
This is short, but it needs a little bit of introduction. And it's basically about the quest of spirituality in women, which complicates their life. Because every time you find a woman finally evolved spiritually, she's gone through a very rough path. And this poem is based on Gautami, the sister of Queen Maya, mother of Gautam Buddha, who died 7 days after the Buddha was born. King Siddhodana married her, and she was the foster mother. When Buddha returned to Kapilavastu as the enlightened one, the Buddha, she wanted to practice dharma, and she wanted to join the Sangha. There were no women then. She was refused 2 times, and then the 3rd time you read the poem to know what. One word about the favorite disciple of Buddha, who was Ananda. He was very liberal. He believed in enlightenment of women. Mahaprajapati. The alpha woman needs to be more like a man. That is, she has to be less of a woman and more of a man, to be taken as an equal, as an honorary man. She then gets closer to her androgynous self. A woman no less than Gautami had to do it. 3 times she asked her nephew and foster son, now a Buddha, the world-honored one, admit her to the Sangha as a bhikshuni. And he refused each time, though the 3rd time proved to be different. For this time around, Gautami got wise. She shaved her head, wore a coarse robe of Venusian colors, and walked hundreds of miles barefoot with a large group of other Shakyan women, all of them of noble birth, and reached the world-honored one. She was admitted and given the title of Mahaprajapati, the leader of all other bhikshunis. Gautami must have thanked her stars that Ananda, a friend of women who made it happen, was also a favorite disciple of Buddha. Or else, in the early politics of gender, there would have been no bhikshunis fully ordained to complete a sangha, unless, of course, they, like Gautami, transformed themselves into their almost male-like half. Like I said, the alpha woman needs to be more like a man. Thank you.
I'll take off from Dr. Lakshmi Kannan's poem, and I find the whole celebration of Women's Day each year rather pointless, because I feel nothing really changes except finding new ways to make it an interesting day. So this is my Women's Day poem. It's called Every Day is a Celebration. Happy Women's Day, he says to her, as she cooks his breakfast, packs his lunch, picks up the groceries, cuts the vegetables, does the laundry, folds the clothes, puts them away, helps with homework, helps with medicines, calls the plumber, calls the carpenter, cleans the bathrooms, scrubs the toilet bowls, dusts the house, waters the plants, makes the casserole, bakes the birthday cake, wakes up early, goes to sleep late. Happy Women's Day, he says to her, as she breaks stones, carries loads on her head, on her back, on her shoulders, in her heart, coughs over an open fire, waits for the dark to take a bath, to piss, to shit, to change her blood-soaked rag, bears another child she will not know, bears her man grunting and burrowing into her, bears the slaps and words and looks and taunts. But yes, happy Women's Day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Srilata?
So taking off from Srividya's poem, this one is called A Woman of Letters. Some days, what I want to be is a woman of letters, to retire to my study and be solitary. I can see it all, that desk, neat, rectangular, coffee brown, its drawers seductive and deep, holding secrets from another age. On it, some paper, a pen, and an inkwell, and a bookcase filled with every kind of book. Austen, definitely, and Dickinson, and Chugtai. No adolescent daughters abandoning dresses in contemptuous heaps. No grubby sons, their dirty socks like bombs under my books. No spouses, no mothers, nor mothers-in-law with their urgent thoughts. Sometimes all I want to be is a woman of letters. Between chores, the very idea makes me weep. Thank you.
Lakshmi Kannan?
I'm so inspired by both Srividya and Srilata about confronting of domesticity, whether a woman wants to be spiritually evolved or a writer. What does she do to get through the negotiate her way through? So I'm reading an unscheduled poem, which is also short, on the same lines. It's called Haldi, and it's a Hindi word for manjal. And when I read it, and all these women poets and readers, they related to the haldi part of manjal. And this is about a woman who is desperately trying to be, she is gifted to be a poet, a gifted poet, but she finds very little time, much less space to, write her poems. This is haldi. It's not just the wedding cards that are etched with turmeric and vermilion for propitious sign, the way we put on a wedding card with manjal and this thing at all. It's not just the wedding cards that are etched with turmeric and vermilion for propitious signs. All the papers that she deals with in the kitchen, either to read or to write, inevitably get smudged with turmeric and chili powder, if not vermilion, as she bustles about the meals. The papers are strewn over the kitchen counter. She rummages through the utensils, looks around the tea tray for the poem she had drafted some time back. Now, where could I have left it? Over the micro oven, maybe? Or did she put it on top of the fridge? Was it the poem that sizzled now on the hot pan? Or has it gone into the steaming milk, rising, threatening to spill over? Where is the draft that she had composed? She searches furiously and then gives up. Oh, I stumble upon it in much the same way I get the monthly grocery that I wrote, or the terms, items for the children's school, or the laundry marked urgent for a choleric husband. Why waste time searching? I'll chance upon it. She resumes cutting, baking, frying, cooking, answers the doorbell, takes the milk delivery, opens the fridge, puts the milk packet on the chiller. What next? She opens the deep freeze chamber above to thaw the frozen green peas for dinner. Ah, there it was. After all the search, that draft of a poem she had composed many moons ago. It was dew fresh, though only a bit stained with haldi and turmeric and chili powder, the color of fresh blood dried by the sun. Thank you.
I'm just doing a little shift, and I wrote a poem called Autograph, and it was written because I think we spend too much time on our bodies and too little time on our hearts, and I wrote a poem as a reflection of that thought. Autograph. You know 15 of the 48 molds that map my body. You know the folds at my waist, the arch of my feet, and my toe rings. You are aware of every breath I take when we are together. You sense a change, even the slightest, and can perhaps sense the desire I feel in my skin. My body carries a perfume that only you know of and that exists only for you. Your tongue knows of the deep shadow of my navel. You have tasted wine and chocolate and salt there. My arms have held you as you shuddered above me. You felt their softness and their strength. You know my hair and my ears and my nose. You say you see yourself in my eyes, your mother in my eyes, home in my eyes. My lips are magic to you and you cannot stop marveling at their shape, their taste, their touch. You know every hair. You know the taste that clings to them, earthy and musky and strong. Your fingers have traced my insides, left their mark in the very marrow of my bones. Your body knows the heat of mine. Does it know my heart? Thank you.
Thank you. And now, one last poem from all of you.
Yeah. So I'll end with this one. This one is called Learn From Me How to Make Pickles. And since he's a Bombay man with an Avakai heart, mother-in-law stands on creaking knees and says, the hope still alive in her eyes, do you want me to teach you how to make them? Mango pickles of various sorts, Avakai, mangai. Let me show you how to pluck the mangoes before they fall in summer, the shapes and sizes in which to slice them, and just how to subdue them. In what spicy, salty oil pools. It isn't hard. Woman, you who sit at your desk all day long and read and write, I've caught you often staring out the window. Learn from me how to make pickles and sashay without a stumble into my son's heart. Wrap your fingers around kitchen knives, not pens. Books aren't bad, I know, and there's nothing the matter with pretty views, but they are nowhere close to pickles. When it comes to certain things, I should know. I've lived on this earth longer than you and have 3 grown children, all raised on pickles. But first things first, the chili should always be a bright Guntur red. Thank you.
Even Jiddu Krishnamurti was a pickle man till his death. Even he was lived far away from this culture, but this Avakai never left him. It was in his blood. Yeah, Lakshmi Kannan, last poem. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself. Please, ma'am, please unmute yourself. Wait, no, it says ask unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
I had to unmute it. This is, this background is on Marina Beach. And that sholam, that corn cob that is roasted on a cart in Marina Beach, whether you've gone there on a full tummy after tea and coffee and snacks or anything, it sort of whets your appetite and makes you hungry all over again. That's when I found a girl born into poverty, a small girl, very, very hungry. So this is hot corn cob on Marina. She may be 7 or maybe an underfed 10, who knows? I saw how she watched her mother roasting corn cob over the flaming coal on her cob, how she blew into the fire to keep alive the long-tongued flames swaying across the strong sea breeze in Chennai's Marina Beach. The mother sent her little girl sprinting on errands. Get more lemons, get some fresh corn cob, bring some spice and hurry. The girl ran to fetch raw corn cob, stealing a look at the cart all the while, her eyes devouring the corn roasting over the coal fire. A wholesome aroma rose from the fumes, wafted in the sea breeze, and wrapped around the little girl as she watched her mother, who now rubbed a slice of lemon over the spice on the ready-to-eat corn cob. I selected 2 tender corn cobs, asked the woman to roast them. I gave one to the little girl and took the other as her mother stared, her mouth wide open. The small girl gave me a toothy smile. Nandri, Amma, Nandri, she thanked in Tamil before she bit hungrily into the hot corn cob, her mouth turning moist on the sides. She looked up and smiled at me again. This time I saw the vast sea swimming in her eyes. Thank you.
It is not Marina Beach, it's the smell of Moraga Bhaji which is make everybody hungry again, even if your tummy is full. Yeah. Please, Srividya.
I started my reading with a question, why do you write in English? And I thought I'd end with one, which is, who do you write for? This poem is called Finding Yourself. It's just a poem to write in those many hours of waiting for you. Don't read too much into it. The man could be you or anyone. The woman is me or anyone else. The dreams are mine or nightmares. The want real or fake. It's hard to say when a poet is lying. It's not clear-cut like real life, and it's not like ordinary people. Poets blend love and life and longing and lying so well, even they don't know always what's what. How then would you? A child is not a child, it is a book. A life is not a life, it is an escape. Someone else is not someone else, it is revenge. You'd be mistaken if you said this poem here is for you. If you said there, look, that's about my hands and my lips and my lovemaking. It could be you, it could be him, it could be anyone. Read a poem, let it speak to you, and then let it be.
It's lovely listening to all your poems, all the 3 of you. It's such a lovely thing. And for those who are watching last 2-3 poetry episodes, we discussed many things. And today's poems, they are not reactions, they are reflections. And it is not merely emotion that is poured into cold letters. Rather, it is a commentary on the society in the times in which these poems are composed. In that sense, I want to add, poetry is also a repository of information. So thank you very much, Srilata. Thank you, Lakshmi Kannan. Thank you, Srividya. It has been such a wonderful program. I wish we can have another 1 hour, such a lovely poems all of you have read, and I wish we have more time. It's almost 1 hour now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lakshmi. Bye, Dr.
Bye-bye. Bye.